Wow. We'll circle that way. Yep. Thank you. You're a what kind of coach? Okay. Ah, interesting. Awesome. Okay, cool. Shannon? Ooh. Oh, I live there too. I like it. Steve. I wish. Wow. I love it, Eric. And it's a lot better than my Ukrainian. So, oh, hey, Shane. All right, go Tigers. And I'm Mike Coffey. I've been in the industry 18 years. So an unusual fact, I've got 5 sisters and a brother. And I was at a closing last week or the week before. And the buyer of my listing was sitting there and we were talking. And he had 5 sisters and a brother. So I think he's the first person I've met who's had the same setup as I did. Okay, and I need you to click on the thing, Shane. Clicker's not working. All right. So, and that's a little bit more about me. I'm the operating principal here. I am KW MAP's business training coach, certified one thing trainer, and a member of the John Maxwell team. Today is all about what? 51 ways to hit your CGI goals, right? So what is CGI? Career Growth Initiative. And what are the CGI goals? Your career goals, right? And when we talk about career goals, we start with what? Money, right? So we're here to create a living for you that will fund your life. Now, that doesn't mean that money is the most important thing, but it does mean that it takes money to fund your life. You want to do with it, right? So we say that money is good for the good that it does for you, not good for its own sake, right? But it still starts with money, and we don't make any apologies for that. So your CGI goals are about how much money do you want to make this year, and based on that, what activity do you need to do to generate those kind of results? So we're going to talk about 51 ways to increase your CGI or to hit your CGI today. Understand that we could probably talk about 150 or 300 things. These are 51 things that you could implement in your business. At the same time, you're not going to implement 51 things, right? So you saw my certified training, right? What am I certified in? The one thing, right? So I don't want you to do 51 things, but there is one thing that will make the biggest difference to you. And if we talk about enough options, you can hone in on those 1, 2, or 3 options that'll make a difference to you. Make sense? Okay, so we're talking about options today, and you get to pick and choose what you want to implement. My only suggestion would be that you don't try to implement too many things at one time, right? Do one thing, do it long enough for it to become a habit, and then introduce another one thing into your life. So speaking of habits, how long does it take to develop a habit? All right, 30 to 90, what? 66, anyone else? Okay, so in our one thing book, we say that scientifically we know that 66 days is a sweet spot, and yet it is just a sweet spot, right? Some things will take you longer to develop, some things will be a lot quicker. So we'll talk about some of the tips that you can use to implement a habit. One of those tips I'll give you right now is to tie it into a habit that you already have. So I was talking to Jay Papasan, the co-author of the book, and he was telling me about a new habit that he wanted to start as part of his morning routine. So he said to himself, when I brush my teeth, I do X, right? So he already had a habit of brushing his teeth every morning, and now he was able to hook on, right? Kind of like a train car, he was able to hook on a new habit to a habit that he had already developed. And by doing that, it was a lot easier to establish that new habit, right? So think about how you can do that in your life. The first option I want you to have for your business is to have set hours, right? What does a set hour mean? So who here has worked a corporate job or a regular job where you got a paycheck before real estate? Okay, were you expected to show up at a certain time? Were you free to leave at a certain time? Relatively, yeah, kind of depends on the job, right? But when you worked a job, you had regular business hours, right? So is your real estate profession a job? Yes, okay. So should you be able to keep regular business hours? I have to give you a little fun family fact that just happened Sunday night. I was talking to my wife because we're investing in a business in North Carolina, and the person we're investing with is looking for a commercial property. And she gets a text on Sunday that her agent doesn't work on the weekend, so she'll get an answer to us on Monday. My wife is like, what kind of realtor doesn't work on the weekend? And I said, a great one, right? I love the fact that this person said, I work Monday through Friday, right? It's her business. Why can't she set up some expectations? So I was actually impressed by that. Second option, take a full weekend day off. How many of you here work weekends? Okay, how many of you here work all the weekend? Good. I like the fact that it's very few people. So you may be working weekends when you work with clients, right? So we want to be realistic. But at least take one of those weekend days off, right? You don't have to work both days. Get your work done on one of the days and take the other day off. Number 3, the iPad rule at home. Has anyone been through this? No, I know you have, Rob. Do you remember the iPad rule? So you do, Shannon? Okay, so the iPad rule is if you're at home and it can't be done on your iPhone or your iPad, it doesn't get done. Okay? Again, we want to be realistic. If you're at home, you're probably going to be getting emails with stuff to do, right? So if I can do it on my phone, it's okay for me to do it from home. If I need to get in and write up a contract or do an Excel spreadsheet or do some kind of work that I need a PC, then it shouldn't be getting done at home. Make sense? So if I can get it done on an iPad or an iPhone, I can get it done at home. Otherwise, it's work that should be done in work hours at my work environment. And we'll talk about work environment as well. We're going to tell you to plan for bunker and sand shots. So who here is a golfer? Anyone? 1, 2, okay. I'm not a golfer, but what is a bunker and what's a sand shot? What's a bunker? Let's start from there. A hazard. Okay, great. And I guess that's kind of difficult, right? Okay. And what's your name, by the way? Hi, Leah. Anything you want to add to that about the bunkers? Okay, that's a bunker. So my understanding is most, if not all, golf courses have hazards like that, right? Is that true? Okay. So it's part of the game, right? If you're in real estate, are there hazards that are part of the game of real estate that come up fairly frequently? Okay. Should we act all surprised when something goes wrong in a contract or in a negotiation? Or should we act like a golfer who says, oh yeah, this is one of the hazards that frequently comes up. And if you happen to hit your ball into a bunker, do you have a plan for getting out of it, right? So this guy is probably using a specific tool to get out of that sand trap, right? What do you call that kind of club? A sand wedge, right? So they even name it. This is a sand wedge that gets me out of the sand trap. Now, when he started out golfing, did he intend to hit his ball into that sand trap? No. And yet, he's carrying around a club with him, right? I don't think he had to stop everything and order a sand wedge because all of a sudden he accidentally hit a ball into a sand trap, right? Started out carrying it with him to say, you know, I could encounter something like this. I'm going to have a tool to get out of this. So I want you to think about your business in the same way a golfer thinks about the golf course. He intends to hit it into that little hole every single time with one shot, and yet if he doesn't make it in one shot, he's got other tools with him to navigate the course, right? So you should think about your business as well, and your clients will think about you as a professional if you do that. This is going to be the first one I would put a major star by, and that is to start with a GPS. So what's the GPS that you have in your car, right? What does that do for you? Gives you direction, right? So if you wanted to go a certain place that you hadn't been before, might you start with a GPS? Okay. And what are the two things that a GPS needs to know in order to give you assistance? Where you are and where you're going, right? So I always describe that as like the two fists. If I hold my arms out, the GPS needs to know exactly where you are, and it needs to know exactly where you want to go. We have a tool at Keller Williams called the GPS. It stands for Goal, Priority Points, and Strategies. The GPS is a one-page business plan. There is one overarching goal that you should have for the year. It says, okay, if I can accomplish this one thing in the next 12 months, I'm going to feel really good about my career, I'm going to feel good about my progress, and I'm going to be able to fund the life that I want to have. Based on achievement of that one goal, there will be no more than 3 priority points. If I can get these 3 things done, I can achieve that one goal, right? Generally, in a business, they tend to be a revenue number, an operational figure, and a leverage point. So let me to achieve $1 million in profit, I need to sell $5 million worth of widgets, right? So my overall goal is $1 million profit. My first priority point is sales of $5 million worth of widgets. My second priority point would be delivery of those sales, right? Because I don't get paid unless I can actually produce the widgets and give them to the client. And the third piece would probably be around the infrastructure, the accounting, purchasing, supplies, people, right? That kind of stuff. You run a business. Depending on the size of your business, you're going to have similar challenges. Most individual realtors have a listing priority, a buy-side priority, and then a leverage priority, right? So if I want to achieve X dollars in revenue this year, I need to sell so many listings, I need to sell so many buy-side transactions, and I need to have support to do all that, right? So that would be a typical GPS for a realtor that was an individual agent. So those would be 3 priority points, and then underneath each priority point, you would have 5 strategies. So up to 5 ways that you are going to accomplish that priority point, right? So think about listings. If you wanted to accomplish sales of 25 listings this year, right? That might mean that you need to take 30 listings in order to sell 25. Right? In order to take 30 listings, you might have to go on 40 listing appointments. Right? In order to go on 40 listing appointments, you'll probably have some kind of marketing strategy, whether it's calling, whether it's expireds, for sale by owners, open house strategy, working your database, right? You're going to pick out a strategy and you're going to implement that strategy to get that listing. So that's what the 5 strategies are about. Every year I take somewhere between a day and a half to plan out my year in advance. Okay? So I start with a GPS and I say, what is the one thing I want to accomplish this year? Based on that, what are my 3 priority points? And based on those 3 priority points, what are my 5 maximum strategies to achieve that priority? Now notice I say 5 maximum. Remember, we're talking about the one thing. If you can accomplish it with 1 strategy, don't do 5, right? Chances are things get a little bit complicated. It's going to take more than 1 thing, right? But you'll do the one thing that gives you the most benefit, and then you'll drop down to the next one thing, right? Which will create or fill in that gap. Does that make sense? I don't want to overcomplicate it. It is a 1-page business strategy. It tells you how you're going to get from where you are today to where you're going in the future. The last thing I'd say about that is when you get in your car and you tell the GPS that you want to go to Reston Town Center, does your GPS have any judgment around that? Does it say, well, that's stupid, that's not very far, right? Or does it say, whoa, that's way too far, you can never get there, right? So your GPS doesn't have any judgment around where you're going. Does it have any judgment around where you're starting from? Does it say, well, that's stupid, you should be halfway there already, what are you doing in Falls Church, right? But we talk to ourselves that way sometimes, don't we? Right? So we tell ourselves, oh, we should be further ahead than we are. Or that goal is too far to reach. Or you'll talk to somebody about your goals and they'll say, well, those goals aren't big enough. You should have bigger goals, right? They're your goals. And the GPS doesn't care where you want to go. And the GPS doesn't have any judgment around where you're starting from. It's simply a direct line to get from where you are to where you want to go, right? So don't have any judgment around where you're starting from. You can get anywhere you want to get to. And if it's important to you, then it's important, right? What I always tell my coaching clients is that I never want to be more motivated towards their goals than they are, right? I don't care what their goals are. I just want them to care more about their goal than I do, right? Because I'm going to care passionately about their achievement of their goal, and they need to do the same thing, okay? So start with a GPS because that will help you get there. Number 6, pay quarterly taxes. This is a fun one, especially at this time of year, right? April 15th is tax day. If you get enough extensions, I think you can get that out to September 15th or something like that. October, okay. And every year I have conversations with realtors who are very stressed out about paying the taxes that they accumulated last year, right? So I want you to start out with a plan, know what you're making along the way, and make quarterly tax payments so you don't have to get stressed out every year. Is that stress beneficial to your health? No, right? And it's not beneficial to your business, so let's take care of it early, right? And let's have you pay your quarterly taxes so you don't get stressed out once a year. Number 7, I'd also put an accountant on here, but hire me on retainer. If you go back to the bunker shots, at some point in your career as a business professional or a business owner, you will likely need a business attorney, right? And it doesn't have to be for something bad. It could be to set up an operating agreement in a partnership. It could be to review a lease. It could be to set some kind of strategic partnership, right? It could be to ask a question about legal setups for investments. But you're a business professional, and all the businesses that I know that are professional businesses have some kind of relationship with an attorney. My point is, you don't want to be looking for that relationship when you need an attorney, because you could make a bad choice, right? So go ahead and look now and give the person $100 and say, hey, I want to put you on retainer, right? It doesn't have to be any formal thing, but start to think of yourself as a business person. All right, come to work at the same time every day. So we talked about having set hours. And part of having set hours is actually waking up for your set hours. Okay? This is going to help establish a routine for you, and it's going to create more of an atmosphere of being a professional. So number 8 is come to work at the same time every day. Number 9, what does this say on the board? Know your contacts daily. What's a contact? You guys are in Buffini classes. How does Buffini define a contact? Relationships, okay. What else? Conversations. So if I come up to you and say that I love your sweater and it's really appropriate given the temperature outside, is that a contact? Yes? No? Okay, in my world, it's not. So what did you say? If you're in the sweater business, it could be a contact, right? So we do have to define what a contact is. Here's what I would say to you. If you define it the same way every time, then it works for you, right? Because if I go and compliment 1,000 people on their sweaters, I might get one real estate transaction out of it, right? So I would know my numbers were 1,000 contacts to one transaction. On the other hand, I count a contact as a discussion about buying or selling real estate, right? Because I know that nationally, for every 80 contacts about real estate, I'll get one closed transaction. So you can see it really doesn't matter, right? If I count any conversation, I'm just going to need to have a whole lot more of those conversations. So count it the same way every day. But I would say if you're comparing yourselves to others in the real estate industry, it's common to use the definition of a conversation about buying or selling real estate, right? So that would be considered a contact. Now, why should you know your contacts every day? Because it's your business, right? So if you owned a restaurant business, you would probably know how many plates of food you need to sell in order to make money at that restaurant business, right? And making money at that restaurant business is going to feed your family and support your lifestyle and pay your mortgage and all that kind of good stuff. So you are a business person, and business people know their numbers, right? So numbers are the fuel of our business, and they tell a story. Right? So if we think about that conversation we just had about contacts, I can tell you a whole story in that. If you count contacts as conversations, now I can tell you a story about how you need to have 1,000 conversations to have a closed transaction, right? And on average, closed transaction in this market is going to bring you $15,000. And by the way, $30,000 is what it costs for you to pay your mortgage. Well, it's probably in this area, a year is not accurate. $60,000 might pay your mortgage in this area for the year, right? So $60,000 is going to be how many transactions? 4 transactions. So now you need to have 4,000 conversations in order to pay your mortgage. Now I'm going to say, by the way, do you want to drive your car? And do you want to pay insurance on it? Do you want to put gas in it? And do you want to eat? Right? So now we're going to add a story and talk about what you need to do in order to accomplish your story for the year. Make sense? So numbers tell a story, and that story will help define your actions. Okay, I love this one. So you can put a little star by this just because I love it so much. So end every call or every conversation with, Preeti, read what it says there in quotes. Okay, what does that mean? Sets expectations, right? So I don't know about you guys, but I have absolutely been in a relationship with a client where things get kind of fuzzy and it sort of stretches out over time, right? And all of a sudden, I don't really know where we're going with this relationship. I don't know when they're going to buy, how they're going to buy. I don't know whether I should follow up with them because I may be bugging them, right? Or if I wait too long and they think I'm ignoring them. So I've sat at my desk before and pondered and twiddled my thumbs, right? Saying, well, am I going to bug them? Are they going to think I'm ignoring them? When do I call them back, right? Whereas one this, I never had to wonder, right? Because I could end every conversation with, here's what happens next. And I can set expectations, and if they don't like the expectations, they have an opportunity to say, it doesn't work for me, right? So here's what happens next. I'm going to call you 5 times tomorrow and ask you if you're ready to sign the contract. And they're going to say, wait a minute. You know, I've got to talk to my spouse. They're out of town. They're not going to be back till Saturday. We're going to need to take another look at that property before we make a decision. Awesome. Okay, so it sounds like here's what happens next. Your spouse is going to be getting back on Saturday. We should book another appointment Sunday to go out and see this property so that you can make a decision Sunday afternoon whether you want to buy it or not. Is that right? Yeah, that works. Great. So here's what happens next. I'm going to call that agent, set up an appointment, let's say for 3 o'clock on Sunday. Does that work? Great, I'll meet you there, right? So it takes all that guesswork around, am I bugging them? Is it time to call them, etc. Right? All right, number 11, add 2 new contacts to your database every single day, okay? So we are human beings. My guess, it'd be interesting. I'm going to guess probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 85% of you ate breakfast this morning. Can I get a show of hands who ate breakfast? Okay, well, it's probably a little bit higher than that, right? If you didn't eat breakfast, are you planning on eating something sometime today? Okay, that probably is most of the rest of us, and maybe 1 or 2% will be on a fast. Right? Pardon me? Oh, it's Lent. Okay, so we're eating fish at least. Your database is just like your body. You need to feed it every single day, right? If you add 2 people to your database every day, in the space of 100 days, how many people would you add to your database? 200, okay? Does anyone know the conversion rates of number of people in your database to number of closed transactions out of the MREA book using a 33-touch system? It's a little bit better than that. So for this comes out of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. We also call it the Red Book by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. Using a 33-touch program. Now, a 33-touch program says that we are going to touch every contact in our database a minimum of 33 times per year, right? So it's essentially 3 marketing touches a month. If you do that over a period of 12 to 18 months, the average says that for every 12 people in your database, you'll get 1 referral that leads to a sale, and you'll get 1 sale out of the people in your database. So it's a 12-to-2 ratio or a 6-to-1 ratio, right? So for every 6 people in your database, there will be a closed transaction over the course of 12 to 18 months. So if those numbers are correct, 200 people in your database will give you 33 transactions, right? Just slightly more than 33 transactions, right? Has anybody got a calculator? Can you do? Who's got a calculator? Do the numbers for me. 200 divided by 6. $33.333. Okay. What's an average transaction worth in this market? 15,000. What is 33.333 times 15,000? $500,000. If I were to meet you at the door as you are walking out and hold up a check and say, go add 2 people to your database every day the next 100 days, so that's going to be roughly 5 months worth of working days, right? For the next 100 days, you add 2 people to your database every day, I'll give you a check for $500,000. Would you take that check? Right? Would you accept that job? If you saw that job posted on Indeed, would you be scrambling to be the first one to respond to it? To say you can make $500,000 by talking to 2 new people every single day, right? And yet you've got the job already, but how many of us do that, right? So I want you to understand, again, the stories and understand the numbers behind your business and why we're telling you to add 2 people to your database every day. It's because you're going to add the people to your database. then you're going to consistently market to them and you'll generate the business from it. Make sense? Okay. Listen to Agent Mountain every month. Now, Agent Mountain is something within KW. So if you're not in KW, go to YouTube, look up videos of highly productive agents, and watch an interview of those highly productive agents, right? What we're telling you, so some of the agents out there, Pat Hyben's a good one. He's up in Maryland. He's on YouTube a bunch. There's a lot of good agents. Cody Gibson's out there on YouTube. You can watch him. There's a lot of really top agents out there who have been interviewed, and they'll share with you how they think, share with you how they approach the business. They'll even share with you specifically how they go out and activate their business, right? So at least once a month, go listen to somebody who's succeeding at a very high level. 13, schedule closings with a strategy. So when do most people close on their properties? The end of the month, so 30th, 31st of the month, right? When you talk to title companies or escrow companies or closing companies, what is their schedule like at the end of the month? It's very busy, right? If something goes wrong in a transaction and you've got appointments booked every 20 minutes, do you have much time to take care of that problem? Okay. If you're stressed out and you've got appointments every 20 minutes, do your clients feel like you've got all the time in the world to take care of them as a person, right? Or do they feel like they're a number that are being pushed through the system, right, as quickly as possible, right? So schedule your closings. You're the one who has major influence, we'll put it that way, over when your clients decide to close, right? So I'm involved in 2 transactions in April, and they're scheduled on the 16th and the 17th of April, right? So it's the middle of the month. My attorneys aren't busy. It's the start of the week, so they actually, you know, if anything goes wrong, they've got more days to make it up. We scheduled it with a strategy so they wouldn't be stressed out, so my clients would feel like everyone was focused on their particular needs and there's no rush, right? We're here to take care of you. So if you have control of that, why would you pick the 30th of the month? Reminds me of stories. So I was listening to John Maxwell this morning, and he was telling a story about a little kid that was fishing, and this old man was, you know, about 25 feet around the shore of the lake from this kid, and he was watching the kid fishing, and the kid was catching a lot of fish that morning, right? And he would reel the fish in, and if it was a little fish, he'd put it in his cooler, and if it was a big fish, he'd throw it back in. And the old man's kind of watching this. He's like, well, that's pretty unusual. I'm going to go talk to the kid. So he's like, hey, how you doing this morning? The kid's like, oh, great. Fish are biting. You know, I'm having a lot of success. He said, well, I noticed that you're throwing the big fish back in and you're keeping the little fish. That's kind of unusual. Typically, people do it the other way around. He says, why is that? The kid said, well, I only have a 7-inch frying pan. Right? So it's all about setting expectations. And in my world, if you're doing all your closings at the end of the month, you're kind of telling yourself you only got a 7-inch frying pan, right? You're only going to be able to take care of this little problem, and big problems are going to be too much for you. So set your closings with a strategy. Follow-up call 1 month after closing. If you're only doing 1 transaction a year, it can be easier to keep up with your 1 client, right? But if you're going to be doing 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 25 transactions every month, you need to have a system around follow-up, right? So that system is a process that will not break down. One of the processes we suggest is 1 month after closing, you have a scheduled follow-up call with your client, right? Again, you can say, here's what happens next, right? Congratulations on your new home. Here's what happens next. You're going to get moved in, and I'm going to call you 30 days from now to check in and see how you're doing. What I also know is that over the next 30 days, you're probably going to talk to somewhere between 3 and 5 people who are also considering moving. It's really weird how that happens. When you move, everyone around you who's thinking about moving is going to come to you about that, right? So what I know is on average, it's going to be between 3 or 5 people. And when those 3 to 5 people talk to you about your new home, here's what I want you to do. Don't give them my name and phone number. Is that okay? And they go, well, why wouldn't I do that, right? You've been great. I want you to have more business. Well, I've also found that when you give them my name and number, oftentimes they forget. They forget where they wrote it down. They put it in the car and it gets lost. And all of a sudden, in their desperation to move, they pick the wrong agent. So they don't get the same kind of service that you did. So I'd rather have you call me with their name and number and allow me to follow up. So just tell them you're going to have a great agent, give them a call, set me up for that call, and I'll take care of them just like I took care of you. Make sense? Great. Okay. So you're setting up expectations and you're setting up your business 1 month after close. Number 15, put a sign in the yard after the buyers close. So what does that mean? That means you get permission, talk to your broker, but get permission from your buyer client that after they move into the home, you can take that nasty sign out of the yard from that other nasty agent, and you can put your really pretty sign up in the yard that says buyer procured by, right, or home closed by your name at Keller Williams Realty, right? So you're letting all the neighbors in the neighborhood know who actually sold that house. If you don't do that, what is that neighbor's assumption? The other sign is the one doing all the business in the neighborhood. So what if you had one agent who took every listing in a neighborhood and you bought every buyer in the neighborhood? What kind of market share would you and that agent share in the neighborhood? You'd have 50% each, right? But what do the other people in the neighborhood think? That buyer sells everything in this neighborhood all by himself, right? So go ahead and get permission from your buyers to put your sign in the yard that says you're the one who bought the buyer to it. Yes, Eric. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Mailings, flyers. Perfect. Yeah. You know, one of the cool things when I was doing a lot of business, I would always host an open house for my buyers in the neighborhood so they could meet their neighbors. Right? I would oftentimes recommend that if they were going to do a garage sale and they were moving locally, to do it after they moved in their new house instead of before they moved out, because I heard all the stories about people doing a garage sale before they move and meeting all the neighbors that they hadn't met in the last 10 years. It's like, well, why don't you do it when you move in, right? And meet them all then. Now you've got relationships instead of saying, oh, those were great people. I wish I had known them for the last 8 years. Okay. Adopt a cross-sale buyer. So this is also called in our industry orphan clients. So what's an orphan client? They don't have an agent, right? Now, What do we mean by adopt the buyers in a cross sale? So in a co-op transaction, if you had the listing, someone else bought a buyer in, right? Does anyone know the NAR statistics when they interview those buyers and NAR says, Mr. or Mrs. Buyer, if you were to do another real estate transaction, would you use the same agent? How many people say yes out of 100? It's like 83, 86, right? 83, 86% of buyers say, yes, I would use the same agent again. Now, most people buy another home in 5 to 7 years. Out of 100 people that buy a new home, how many are using the agent they used to purchase that house? 16 to 20. So what happens between the 80-some% that say, I will use this agent again, down to the 15 to 20% that actually do? Did they change their mind? They lose, right? The agent quits communicating with those people, and those people don't remember who that agent is. So it's the agent's fault. Now, if I'm a business person and I know that my business is directly related to contacts with people, and I know that my competition out there has market share, right? They've got clients that they're going to, what's another word for piss away? Because that's a bad word. That they're going to forget about. If I know that my competition has a relationship with a bunch of clients that they're going to forget about, what should I do about that? I should have a strategy to stay in touch with them because I know the people are there. I've got contact information. I know where they live because I listed the house. I know all about the neighborhood and the market because I listed the house. So I'm going to adopt those people. I'm going to know that 15 people out of 100 are going to go back to their former agent, right? And that's okay because 85% of them won't. So I'm going to adopt everyone knowing that 85% are not going to use their former agent. And I will likely get those people if I stay in touch with them, right? And by the way, the people that purchase the home already think you're the expert in selling homes in that market. As much as they love their buyer's agent, they still don't think of them as the expert on selling homes in that neighborhood, right? So go ahead and use that psychology, reinforce the fact that you're the expert in their market and stay in touch with them, okay? 7, find accountability on contact. So what is accountability? What does Gary call accountability? Think about, is it Cheerios, right? Is it Cheerios? Wheaties. What is Wheaties? Anybody remember the slogan for Wheaties? Breakfast of champions, right? So Gary says accountability is the breakfast of champions. So what does accountability mean? Holding to a standard. Whoa, are you like a professor? That is such a great definition, right? Accountability is holding to a standard. So if we're asking you to find accountability around your contacts, what does that mean? That means somebody or something to hold you to a standard around your contacts, right? Now, who could hold you to a standard around your contacts? Coworker, friend, coach, mentor. What else? Broker. Yourself? Huh? Family member? Okay. You got two great people in the back of the room that will hold you accountable, three great people now, that will hold you accountable to your standards. So for me, I would say that out of all of the answers, and this is not a judgment, this is strictly my experience, of all the answers we just heard, the very worst person that I can choose to hold myself accountable is me. So I suck at that, right? And the second worst person I can have hold me accountable is my spouse, because I will then hate them, right? So I suggest that you don't have your spouse and you don't have yourself. Now, on the level of accountability, probably the third or fourth would be friends and family. Again, it's because of that relationship that your friends and family hopefully are going to care more about the relationship with you than they are going to care about the number of contacts you make, right? So when you have a goal of doing 2 contacts a day, or 10 contacts a day, or 20 contacts a day, and you say to them, yeah, but you know what? I woke up and I stubbed my toe getting out of bed, and I got this really nasty email from a person I knew in high school, and I just couldn't do it today. What are they going to say? You poor thing. God, that's awful. I hate when people are mean. Here, let me make you a cup of tea, right? You shouldn't have to go through that. Of course, take the day off. You should probably go get your feet massaged, right? Because they care about the relationship. What's your coach going to say? Snap out of it. Suck it up, right? So does your mortgage care whether you're having a good day or not? Right? Okay, so if you're going to make the money to pay the mortgage through making contacts, how many contacts did you make? What's the bold law? You can have reasons or results, right? So excuses or results. And you can't have both. Oh good, there's no one in this room. I was a team leader in Reston, and I remember I would do a group accountability with the newer agents. And one accountability session, I made 3 of them cry. Now, honestly, in my opinion, I'm a nice guy. And I really do care about people, right? And I care about them being successful. And I was tired of wasting my time going into a meeting listening to excuses of why they weren't hitting the numbers. And I'm also a little impatient, so one day I was just like, blah, 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 right? What are your numbers? I don't care about the story, because your mortgage doesn't care about the story. Your mortgage cares about your number. And I care enough about you to tell you to quit telling me the story and tell me the number, right? Because you can have reasons or you can have results. You can't have both. And at some point, if you want to succeed at a high level, you need to have an accountability partner, a coach, a broker, whatever it is that will hold you accountable to the results. Because the stories aren't going to pay the bills. Okay? Preview 3 homes every day if you're not in enough. What number are we at? 18. Okay. So preview 3 homes every day if you're not in enough. Why would you do that? Know the market, right? We are in the business of real estate. Now, if you're dealing with a lot of buyers and sellers, you're in homes every day. If you're not, get out there and get in homes. Put yourself in the way of business and educate yourself on the market. It's going to make you look smart when you actually do confront a potential client, because it'll seem like you know what you're talking about. Oh yeah, I was in a home just like that the other day. Let me tell you about it, right? And if you're not out there getting in property with buyers and sellers, then you've probably got time to do this, right? So educate yourself on the market. Number 19, do 2 APIs weekly, even if they're fake. Now, I love the term API. Does anyone remember what that is from another class that I taught? All right, so the last initial there, the I is an index, the P is a price, and the A stands for absorption. So this is an absorption price index. What is absorption? Where's my dictionary, my thesaurus? How quick something sucks up, right? So if a sponge is absorbing water, how quickly does it suck up that water? In the market, absorption is based on the number of homes that sell per month. How quickly would we run out of homes to sell if nothing new came on the market? So if we have 10 homes available for sale today, and we know that on average 5 homes sell every month, we would know that we have 2 months supply if nothing new comes on the market, right? So the absorption rate would be 2 months. And this tells us something about the market. Because a stable market, so we know that markets always go between being a buyer's market and a seller's market, right? The point of inflection where it changes is 6 months supply, right? So about 6 months supply is a stable market. When it's less than that, it becomes a seller's market. When it's more than that, it becomes a buyer's market, right? And it's just the law of supply and demand, how that works out. So an absorption price index is what you know as a CMA, okay? So what's a CMA? Right? A comparative market analysis. It's the same thing. Now, really, when you tell buyers or sellers you're going to give them a CMA, what do they think you're giving them? Bottom line is the price of the home, right? Oh, they're going to do a CMA. I'm going to get the price of the home. Now, every realtor out there does a CMA. So most buyers and sellers today have been conditioned that realtors throw out CMAs like confetti, right? Everybody can do one. So if everybody can do a CMA, am I giving them something special? No, right? It's like, hey, I could crack a piñata. If I swing a stick, I'll hit a realtor and I can get a CMA. Does anyone else give out APIs in your market? You guys don't know what they are. Do you think your buyers and sellers know what they are? Yeah. Yeah, so they got it, and yet if you go to your buyers and sellers and say, I'm going to create an absorption price index for you, do you think they'll, whoa, wow, you know, you're pretty smart. What is an absorption price index? What does that mean? Why is it important? Right? So I'm going to position myself differently from the other 8 realtors that they've heard from that's going to give them a free CMA. Right? Because I'm giving them an API and they have no idea what that is till I tell them. Number 20, internet lead generation to create fill-in passive lead gen. Now, as I go around teaching around the country, I hear from a lot of agents that tell me that they don't do internet lead generation. And typically the reason they give me is because of the lower conversion rates. So how many people here do internet lead gen? 1, 2, okay. So So what I mean by that term is all of it. And the reason why most people don't do any of it is because on average, it's going to be, if you're really good, it's going to be a 2 to 4% conversion rate. So you're going to do a lot of work. There's going to be a big funnel for very few people that get through that entire funnel to buy from you, right? Whereas if you're dealing with your own database, remember it's a 12-to-2 ratio. Okay, so if I've got to talk to 10,000 people in social media versus talking to 6 people in my database, what am I going to do? Talk to 6 people in my database, right? The problem is, or the opportunity is, that internet lead gen it's passive, so it can go on without your activity, right? And you can reach a whole lot of people that you couldn't reach if you were picking up the phone or door knocking. So what we suggest is, although it has a different conversion rate, you still want to be doing it, right? You want to be doing that as passive so that when you're active maybe slows down or you're waiting for it to pay off, you've got other things that fill in. Make sense? In other words, you just don't ignore something because it has a lower conversion rate. You just build it into a strategy knowing that it's more of a passive play for you. Okay, we've talked about knowing your numbers. The way to know your numbers is to track your numbers. And I would add daily here, right? So track your numbers daily, weekly, monthly. What's a great tool to track numbers? CGI? Wow, all the way back from our first slide, right? A great tool to track your numbers is using the CGI. And the CGI magically also tells you what numbers to track, right? And yet it's just a tool. You can track it in anything. I don't want you to get so hung up on the tool that you forget the purpose, right? The tool is just a way to make things easier. And if it's getting in the way of the activity, set it aside and use something that won't get in the way of activity and go back to it. So I'll tell you what I mean by that. Back when I started, we didn't have all of these great tools to track your numbers. So I had a blank sheet of paper in front of me when I would get on the phone every day. Whoops. So I would get on the phone daily for a day. So you probably can't read my writing, but I would have a blank sheet of paper in front of me with 4 columns. And at the top, I wrote dial, contact, lead, and appointment. And I would pick up the phone and I would dial and I would make a check mark, right? If they answered the phone, I would make another check mark. If it became a lead, I'd make another check mark. If it became appointment, I'd make another, right? And I would just go through my calls, right? And at the end of my 3 hours, I would go through and count how many check marks I had. So I would know that on average, I could get about 25 dials in per hour, and 12 of those dials would be answered, so it would be a contact. Out of 12 dials, I'd get 3 leads, and for every 3 leads, I'd have an appointment. Knew how many appointments I would need to have to get a listing. I knew how much a listing was worth. So I could go back and say, based on that, here's my plan for the year. In order to make 600,000, I need to do 3 hours of calls, 3 days every week for 40 weeks of the year, right? And the numbers add up. Now, I don't know when I pick up the phone if that person is going to become a sale. But I do know if I pick up the phone 2,000 times, I'm going to get X number of sales out of it, right? The only way I could know those averages is by tracking them and looking back over time and saying, here's what my average is. I'd say you need to track them for at least 90 days before the averages will make sense, right? If you do it for a week, you get some odd results. If I'm calling this week and it's spring break and everyone's out of town, my numbers are going to be different than if I call next week, right? And then the week after that, it's Easter. So you get these little blips, right? But if you do it over 90 days, those blips smooth out and you get some averages. So find a way to store your numbers. I'm going to suggest the CGI and track your numbers every day. But I don't want to hear an excuse that I couldn't track my numbers because my internet went down or I wasn't near my computer, right? Because that's just a tool. Here's how you can track your numbers without any of that. Do an unsolicited API, right? Or CMA. Create unsolicited CMAs and send them out to people in your database. So if you've been in this training before, you may remember my story about the condo I owned in Florida. Anyone remember that? Rob, you do? So I purchased a condo in Florida during the run-up of the market. I bought it for, it was like $300,000, $305,000, something like this. And I'm not telling you this because I was smart. I was just completely lucky. Purchased the condo, hadn't been back to it since the day I bought it. 3 months later, I'm going to go down to Florida, and I call the agent and say, hey, I'm going to be down at our condo. Haven't seen you in 3 months. Just thought we'd grab a cup of coffee. The agent says, great, would love to do that. I'm supposed to be working with buyers, but there's nothing in the market. So I don't, I won't be showing them homes long because nothing's available. I was like, really? Wow, the market's gotten hot. What price are you looking at? Oh, they're looking about $450. Oh my God, if I could get $450, I'd sell my house, my condo. She's like, I can get you $450. I'm like, bring them over, right? Yeah. Swear to God, sold the condo, right? Had been in it once and what's that, 150% in 3 months. It was a crazy market. Would I have called the agent to sell that condo? No, I had no idea. But in some way, she gave me an unsolicited CMA, right? I wasn't looking to sell. And she said, I can get you that. And I'm like, sell. So you don't know if there's anyone in your database that would sell their property at a certain price. And they don't know what their property is worth, right? So go ahead and send unsolicited CMAs. If you're going to go out and preview 3 homes a day or 3 homes a week, you could send a message to people in your database in that market, right? To say, hey, I was in the market this week doing an absorption price index on the Falls Church market. Thought you might be interested in seeing what homes are going for these days, right? That's an unsolicited API or CMA. Questions about that? Could you do that? Okay. 23, say affirmations. All right, so energy's getting, everyone stand up, quick with the quickness. All right, shake it out. Okay. All right, so I want everyone to say this affirmation here together. 1, 2, 3. I am the master of my habits. Now let's say it with energy. I am the master of my habits. All right, I love it. Thank you. You can sit down. All right, so say affirmations. So our mind, our intellect, right, is the goal setter. It's what sits down and plans out things. But our emotions and our spirit is the goal getter, right? It's what closes that gap between what we want out there and all of the chatter in our mind that tells us we can't get there, right? Because our brain doesn't know the difference. If I say a negative, right, I'm going to stop my ability to go out and achieve those goals. So I want to start training my mind and taking control over my mind, because I know that when I control my mind, I control my outcomes. And I start with affirmations, right? So even if I would say it's all gobbledygook, airy-fairy stuff to you, I don't know anyone that's ever looked at a scientific study that says it's harmful, right? So worst case scenario, if you don't buy into it, it's not going to hurt. And I can show you a lot of science behind the fact that it will actually help, right? So choose your affirmations carefully and start using them. When I told you that story about Jay Papasan hooking, it was with saying affirmations in the morning. Right? So when I brush my teeth, I say my affirmations. So bam, it just connects right there. All right, read a book a month. And if you're not a reader, then listen to a book a month. What we're talking about here is just introducing new ideas and concepts into your brain. We tend to get comfortable with that we know, and we believe that we know them and they're true and they'll always be true, right? So we want you to expand your thinking and read something new every month, preferably something nonfiction, right? But even if it's fiction, it can stimulate new ideas, new thoughts. All right, stand up when prospecting. So I had you stand up when you said your affirmations. Did you notice any change in your energy when you stood up? Okay. So when prospecting, what is prospecting? Let's start there. Lead generation, making connections. And if you're networking or door knocking, you're probably going to be standing up anyway, right? But if you're on the phone, what do we tend to do when we're on the phone? We tend to sit down, right? And I guarantee you that after 15, 20, 30 minutes, 2 hours, 3 hours making phone calls, and you're sitting down, your energy is going to be dropping and dropping and dropping. 80% of communication is nonverbal. And when you're on the phone with people, you lose all of that nonverbal communication, right? So you're already working from a detriment because you're on the phone, and then you sit down and your diaphragm collapses and there's little energy coming out over the phone. So stand up when you prospect, because it's going to keep your energy up. It's going to help you communicate more energy over the phone, which comes across. If you really want to be a master of prospecting, you will stand up, you'll have a mirror in front of you, and you'll have a big sign over the mirror that says smile. Because when I smile, even if I'm faking it, my energy goes up in my voice and I sound friendlier and more attractive over the phone, right? And if I don't have a mirror in front of me, I'm going to forget to do that. So if you really want to take it to the extreme and be the best you can be, stand up, have a mirror in front of you, and over that mirror, write smile. Now, if you're going to prospect anyway, why not get the most out of it, right? So we'll talk about open houses in a minute, but in the shift book, they have a 7th level open house, right? Has anyone read the shift book? Okay, page 71. So most of you probably came into the business after the shift of the market already happened, right? There's a lot of new people in here. When the market shifted, we needed to go back to some of the basics, right? Because business wasn't just falling in our lap anymore. Markets shift over time. So if you haven't been through one yet, you will. So prepare for it. In the shift book, it talks about how to maximize the impact of an open house. What I'm talking about here is how to maximize the impact of the time you spend prospecting, right? You're going to do it anyway, so do it at the highest level. Use the 7 steps to 10 listings. If you don't know what those 7 steps are, you can email me at mcoffey, it's MCOFFEY @kw.com, or go out to YouTube and put 7 steps to 10 listings, Cody Gibson, and you can watch the YouTube presentation that Cody did at Family Reunion last year, the 7 steps to 10 listings. It's an awesome video. Okay, send a custom buyer fish email every day. This is number 27. So what is a buyer fish email? A buyer fish email says, potential buyer, I was in a home this week that was a 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath. It's priced at $599.9. It's at the end of a cul-de-sac with a pool. And, you know, I was thinking back of what you were looking for. I thought this home would be perfect for you. Just send out that unsolicited email. If you don't have any active buyers, then I would pick out an investment property, because anyone could be an investor in real estate, and probably would be if they do that, right? So pick out something that would be a great investment. Mr. and Mrs. Contact, or Ms. Contact, I was out previewing homes last week and came across a 4-sided brick ranch that's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, listed for $185,000 in a market where homes like that are renting for $2,500 a month. Right? What a great investment. Have you ever thought about investing in real estate? Make offers from your sellers to your buyers. So again, in the kind of market that we've been in, most of you probably have never had to do this. But I can tell you, in a shifting market, when things start sitting on the market, you might have a listing that gets a lot of showings and doesn't get any offers. Or if you're in the $3.5 million range, you might have a listing that's on the market for a while that's getting showings but aren't getting any offers. So make reverse offers. You get a buyer through, they really like the house, but they're not ready to make an offer. Well, what if I could throw in a Lamborghini? Right? Does anyone, I mean, you guys probably don't remember, this was especially true during the tech crash bubble, the crash of the tech bubble. When I got into real estate, people were doing all sorts of creative things. I remember one house on the market that had one of those wood-sided speedboats, like from the 1950s, in the garage. It was a really sweet boat. And they're like, hey, if we get a great offer that'll close in the next 45 days, the boat stays here, right? So, you know, just some unusual things. Make it attractive. Give them a reason to make a decision. Yeah. Yeah.
They're making jokes about it. They're listing in Old Town Alexandria this week because the car popped the curb and landed on its side next to a real estate fund.
Oh, really?
So they were making jokes about it.
Hey, Shane. Thank you. All right. send a total market overview or something similar to your sellers every week. So this is giving them an update on what's going on in the market. A total market overview is everything that's going on in real estate. It's got the price range, and then it's got it broken down to the different price points. It has the number of active listings, number of pendings, the percentage of pendings, months inventory. So across the line, expired listings in the last 6 months, closed listings, original list price, final list price, average sales price, etc., right? Days on market. So it's giving your sellers an update on everything that's going on in the market. What does that do for the seller? Keeps them informed, right? If they're number people, it gives them something to sit there and do with their time, right? Yeah. Awesome. So we know that we are poised for a correction in the market of some type. We don't know what it's going to look like. But I do know that when markets go through corrections, sellers' expectations are many months behind the correction, right? So if you go from a market where everything sells over list price with multiple offers in 3 days, and the market shifts overnight to nothing sells and it sells cheaply, right? The seller still thinks, I should be getting multiple offers on my house, it should have sold already. If you're not keeping them up in the market, what do they think about you? Why is their house not selling? Because you suck, right? Because you haven't told them any different. So of course they're going to assume you're not doing your job because my house hasn't sold. And it is natural for sellers to think that. They hired you to get their home sold, right? And you need to stay in touch with them to let them know what's going on in the market so that they can make the best decision. And if the market's changed and you haven't kept them appraised of the market, how could they make the best decision in pricing their home? Right? They couldn't because you haven't told them. Talk to every client using a 2x3 method. So 2x3 means that every client that you have gets 2 pieces of communication every week. One of those communications can be electronic, text, email, something like that. One of those communications has to be voice to voice. And the 3 means that every 3 weeks, you're going to be meeting with that client in person for an update on the market. So you might be over there every week putting in flyers, cleaning your sign, right? Whatever you're doing. But if you're not having a discussion with them about the price of their home in today's market, it doesn't count. So once every 3 weeks, you're going to have a discussion with them about what's going on in the market and what that means in terms of pricing. Okay? So 2 conversations every week. One of those can be electronic. One of those is voice to voice. And every 3 weeks, you're going to have a discussion around price. And I would have that discussion in your office. So how does that happen? How do you have a discussion with a seller in your office once every 3 weeks? Somebody give me some ideas. So, okay, good. So when do you think we need to set this up? From day one. Set expectations, right? So for me, again, I'm not like a bubbly personality, and I don't like to waste time eating, which is how I look at it. So I'm not going to take a client to lunch because it's going to take me an hour and a half to tell them what I could tell them in 15 or 20 minutes. That's me. My clients know that that's what they can expect when they work with me. 90% of agents out there are going to have an expectation where the client's going to be your best friend and you're going to go to lunch every other day, right? That's okay too. It works. It's just what fits you. But for me, I'm going to meet with the client and I'm going to say, you're hiring me to get your home sold. My job is to provide you perspective on the market. Here's what happens next. We're going to aggressively market this home to get it sold in the shortest possible for the maximum amount of money with the least hassle. If it hasn't sold in 3 weeks, we're going to get back together in my office. We're going to thoroughly review the numbers, right, of what's going on in the market, and we're going to make a decision as to our next pricing strategy. Because if we've gauged the market correctly, you're going to be under contract in 3 weeks. If we haven't gauged it correctly, we need to take a fresh look. And the best place to do that is in my office where I've got all that information, right? So that's what's going to happen next. I'm going to call you twice a week, or I'm going to send you an email every Monday, and I'm going to give you a call every Wednesday. And every 3 weeks, we'll be back in my office. I meet clients Wednesday afternoon between 2 and 5. What works best for you, I'll go ahead and pencil it in. Okay? So setting expectations. If I do that, I'm allowed to leave work at the same time every day, so I can establish rhythms in my life and use this platform, this business, as a way to fund the life that I want to live. When I got into selling real estate full time, I did it because I wanted to own a business and earn a great living and be able to watch my son grow up, right? I've been in consulting. I was on the road 4 days a week. I was working 80 hours a week, and he was in kindergarten, and Dad was the guy who showed up Thursday night and left Sunday night, right? And I didn't want that. So it was important for me to be at his bus stop at 3:20 in the afternoon. The way I could do that was to go out and take a bunch of listings and price them right, so I could be home at 3:20 in the afternoon and watch my son grow up. So I left work at the same time every day, and I set my job up to work for me, not the other way around. If you're going to work evenings, then work a 2-hour block or work a 2-hour evening block without clients. So what this means is block out 2 hours every week where you can just do planning, do your thinking, do your strategizing. There's that old quote, supposedly they asked Lincoln, if you had 10 hours to cut down a tree, what would you do with your time? And he said, I'd spend 8 hours sharpening my saw, right? And I'd spend the next 2 hours cutting down the tree. So the idea is the more effective you are with your planning time, the more purposeful you can be with your work time, and you actually reduce the amount of time that you spend. So spend some time every week without clients so you can just do your planning and your thinking. I don't encourage working weekends. I really don't, and yet I know we're in an industry where it's very common. However, that being said, Sunday night is my time for planning. I like a Sunday night because I get some time to decompress from the week before, and I can start planning what the week ahead is going to look like. Use a 411. So we talked about the GPS. The G in the GPS stands for what? G stands for goal. The P stands for priority points, maximum of 3. And the S stands for strategies, maximum of 5. Our GPS is a one-page business plan. The 411 turns that business plan into an action plan. So it says, here's what our annual goals are. And in order to be on track for those annual goals, here's where I need to be at the end of March, right? So at the end of March, I'm 25% through the year. And if I were to spread my goals out equally across the year, I should be at 25% of my goals. And you'll notice on this form it has job, business, personal, and personal financial. The other form you can download just has business and personal, right? So it just depends. I use the one that has business and personal so I can narrow it down to fewer things. But here's where I want to be at the end of the year. Therefore, here's where I need to be at the end of the month. Therefore, this is what I need to accomplish this week, right? This is the activity this week that will keep me on track for the results I need this month, that will make sure I'm on track for my results every year. Now, this is what coaching and accountability is all about. If you measure this every week, how long can you be off track? What's the maximum amount of time you could be off track without knowing it? A week, 6, 7 days at the maximum, right? The problem with goals is most of us kind of like maybe sometime the 2nd or 3rd week in January, we think, oh, it's a new year. We should think about what we want to accomplish this year, right? So we'll write down some things, and maybe by February we'll get those things in writing, and then we'll put them away. And then around Thanksgiving time, we start thinking about having to buy all the Christmas presents we need to buy this year and how the bank account doesn't have that much money in it. And we go back to what our goals were for the year, right? And we go, okay, I got 4 weeks left of the year and I'm 80% towards my goal. So I got 4 weeks to make up 20% of the year, right? It's like when you send the rocket to the moon. It's off course 98% of the time. The reason, and I always think about this after the fact, it shows my age when I say rocket to the moon, right? When you send the shuttle up to the International Space Station, it's off course 98% of the time. The reason it gets there every time is because they measure it in such small increments that they make those tiny corrections to keep it on course. Your 411 is your tiny correction to get back on course. The world is to pull you away from your goals and your activity. Everything that happens to you every day is set up to take you away from your focus, right? And the 411 allows you to get back on focus, at least for the major things that will bring you the biggest impact. Number 34, play contact games. So what's a game you can play with contacts? I am not going to do X until I have done Y, right? So I'm not going to go get a cup of coffee until I make 5 more contacts. I'm not allowed to go to the bathroom until I make 20 contacts. I'm not allowed to leave work until I've made 20 contacts. After I've made 3 more contacts, I'm going to eat this M&M, right? Just play a game with it. Make it fun. Gary Keller will tell you that the pattern of success is learning to master repetitious boredom, right? If you think about prospecting 3 hours a day, 3 or 5 days a week for your career, it's not fun. It's not exciting, right? The money's fun. The money's exciting. But the act of doing that is exciting. So play with it, make it fun, but understand you're going to do it anyway, so let's have some fun with it, right? Make games around it. Call around your opens. So what this means, again, page 71 of the Shift book, if you're going to do an open house, maximize your time there, which means you're going to call the neighbors beforehand and you're going to invite them to come to your open house, right? Why would you want to invite the neighbors to the open house? They might have friends that want to move in, or they might be thinking of selling, or they might know a neighbor, or they might just appreciate the fact that I've never seen a more professional agent, and if I ever need to do a real estate transaction, I want to pick somebody who does their job seriously, right? 36, write 5 notes a day. It is so easy. How many of you are in the Buffini program? Right? Are you writing notes every day, or at least every week, right? There you go. All right, visit lender and title offices in person. So we're fortunate here that we've got some great partners. However, most agents will deal with these people over the phone. And over the phone, when you're in the midst of a transaction, is not the best way to develop a relationship, right? You have partners that can help make you look better and help you succeed in your business. Build a relationship with those people so that they can help you do a good job with your clients, right? And if you're not in a great relationship, go find a great relationship. Do one uncomfortable thing every day. So I decided this morning that I got to pick this because they've got me on camera. And I hate being on camera, right? So this gets to be my uncomfortable thing today. But every day do something that makes you a little bit uncomfortable. I was blessed with a great marketing professor in my undergraduate marketing studies, a guy by the name of Dr. David Schwartz. He wrote a book called The Magic of Thinking Big. He was a tenured marketing professor. So what do tenured professors get to do? Whatever they want, right? So he was a great tenured professor. He could say whatever he wanted. He said if you had facial hair, you could not get an A in his class because he thought that facial hair turned people off. And he said, you know, that it has the potential to turn away a client. And he's never met a client who would only do business with somebody with facial hair. So why would you take the chance that it could, you know, turn somebody away? Now, I know there are people in here with facial hair, but this was his gig. He also said if you got pregnant or could prove you got somebody pregnant, you would get an automatic A because he loved kids. And he thought kids were the clients of the future. So we needed to populate the world. He would tell you that when you went grocery shopping, you should park furthest away from the door. So you get in exercise. You should take a cart with you and leave it at your car, not put it away, because it kept those car hop people employed, right? And it was a great introductory career. So he had some little off things. What was my point? My point was that he also said you should take a different route to work or school every day. Try something different. Just because you're going to open your mind, you're going to see something new or see it in a way that you've never seen it before. So do something uncomfortable. Put your socks on in a different order. You know, try writing with your left hand instead of your right. Just do one thing uncomfortable just to shift things up. Role play scripts alone, daily, and quickly. So I learned once a different term for the word script, right? We had a course at KW that was called Language That Works. And I like that because people hate having a script, and yet why wouldn't you want to use it was effective? And all scripts is a definition or a study of the language that works in different scenarios. And I promise you that you all use scripts, whether you think you do or not. If you've gotten into the same situation more than 2 or 3 times, you've developed a script around it that you use, whether it's talking to your spouse or your kids or, answering the phone. You've got a script that you've just fallen into. So we're telling you to choose it purposefully. Yes. And so the question was, in my experience, do scripts play a major role in success? Yes. For a couple of reasons. It sets you apart as a professional. It forces you or allows you to be very purposeful in your interactions with people, and it's more effective. So you get maximum impact for the amount of time that you spend. Now, you don't want to sound scripted, right? And you want to use a script that fits your personality and the client's expectation of you. So I'm not telling you to use a stupid script or to use a script stupidly. And that's why we tell you to practice every day quickly by yourself in front of the mirror. So the way to set something in your memory is to say it very fast, like 10 times in a row, right? And if you say it in front of a mirror really quickly, as fast as you possibly can, 10 times in a row, and you do that repetitiously, it's going to sit in your mind. I have scripts in my mind that I memorized when I got into this business 17, 18 years ago that just stay in my mind, right? And they'll just come out if I'm in that situation. So once you've done the work, they're there, a tool that you can use. So practice alone, daily, and very quickly, and role play with a partner every day. So when I went to work, I had a routine. I would get into work. I would practice my scripts alone in front of a mirror very quickly. Then I would get on the phone and I would role play my scripts with a role play partner. I had a different role play partner for every day of the week, and I had them in different markets around the country. Was that thoughtful? Was it, obsessive? I don't know. I did it for a reason. I started out having one role play partner, and I would find that the role play partners weren't as dedicated to their business as I was. And they'd flake out, and then I'd be stuck with no role play partner while I tried to find another one. So I figured out if I got a different one for every day of the week, the worst thing that could happen is one day would be a flake out instead of the whole week. When I got them from different parts of the country, it introduced me to different things that were going on in different markets, in different teachings and different language, right? So we would all write our own scripts and we'd share our scripts to see what works, right? So it just allowed you to build a larger repertoire of tools that you could carry around with you. Number 41, answer how is the market correctly. So when you're in real estate, do people ask you, oh, how's the market? Yep. So what's the answer to that realtors give? That's a good answer, and that's the answer they mostly give, right? Mostly they say, oh, the market's great, right? Now, if I'm going out to buy a 3.5 thing, as a buyer, is the market good for me in that market? Probably. There's probably a lot of choices, right? It's probably long than 6 months worth of inventory, which means I'm probably in the power seat. If I'm a seller that needs to move to California next month and I've got a $3.5 million listing, is the market great for me? Probably not, right? Because there's a lot of competition. I'm going to have to get creative and really, strict on my price. So the great answer to how's the market is, why do you ask? So depends, right? Says, well, okay, now we can have a discussion about it. But quite frankly, the answer to any client's question is another question. Because who wins in a conversation? The one who asks the question, not the one who answers, right? So what you really want to know is, what is the client thinking? And you already know what you're thinking. You don't need to know that, right? You already know it. So the best way to win in a conversation is to ask the client a question and understand more about their thinking and more about their needs. So how's the market? I get asked that all the time. Tell me, why do you ask? Oh, we're thinking of buying. Oh, my neighbor's thinking of putting their home on the market. Oh, we've been talking about investing. Oh, we're thinking about renovating, right? So there's a reason why they're asking. Or, oh, you said you were an agent and I didn't know what else to say, right? I just met you, right? So, hey, we can laugh and start building some rapport, right? But I want to know why they're asking. Number 42, collect your earnest money up front. What does that do for you? Tells you they're serious and gets their head in the game, right? And has a discussion about money before it gets emotional, right? Because no decision's been made yet. So let me tell you what's going to happen. We're going to sit down. I'm going to thoroughly understand your needs. I'm going to find the 5 homes that fit your needs in this market, right? We're going to talk about reality versus fantasy, right? Because the fantasy is you're going to find something that has everything you want. The reality is you're going to have to make a choice of what's available in the market if you really want to move, right? So I'm going to find the 5 best homes that fit your needs. We're going to go out and we're going to look at the best one first, because I don't want it to get away from you. Some of my clients still don't feel comfortable putting an offer in on the best home because they're not sure it's the best till they look at a few others. So we're going to go down the list, right? They're just going to get worse from there, but I want you to know that you're making the right decision, right? So I'm going to ask you after every home, do you want to make an offer, right? Now, I'm setting things up. And by the way, before we go out, we're going to want to be prepared to make a really strong offer. So let's go ahead and talk about what's important to you and what kind of financing you're going to do, how much escrow or how much earnest money you're going to put down. Let's go ahead and get all of that prepared. So now all we're going to have to do is fill in the address, the price, and maybe if you want that dining room chandelier or their refrigerator or something like that, right? But we'll already have 80% of the decision made. Now we just find the right choice to fill in the blanks. All right, pay yourself a salary. So just like paying your quarterly taxes, treat your business like a business. And if you're incorporated or if you have an LLC, an S Corp, however you do it, you can pay yourself a salary and then earn the rest of your money through bonuses or profit distribution from that company. Okay? Why is that? Because you're now running a business. A business will have certain fixed expenses. Most of your expenses as a person are fixed, right? So your mortgage, your car payment, your insurance, all of that stuff is fixed. So you should be able to pay yourself a salary so that you can manage your fixed expenses, right? And run your business like a business. And there's a little side note, and it has to do with motivation. If you've got, for me anyway, if I've got a bill coming in every month, I'm really motivated to pay that bill. I know we've talked about this in some of our coaching, right? So I set up a bill for my investments. I set up a bill for my savings. So I've got those bills coming in every month. So I'm really motivated to do the work I need to do to pay those bills. Paying yourself a salary is the same way. You can't get away with saying, oh, you know, it's okay, I'll have 2 closings next month, right? Because you've got salary of 10 that's being paid out this month. So for me, it's a habit of running a business. Quite frankly, if you ever turn your business into a 7th level business, meaning you're not working a job, it's now a business that's providing you money, you're going to need a salary to pay somebody to do that job. So why not go ahead and set the business up where it can afford that salary, right? Then you hire somebody else in to do your work and you step away from it and it's still making a profit. 44, promote your clients on social media rather than yourself. 45, do 2 smart opens a week, level 7 and up. Again, page 71 of the shift book gives you a 7th level description of an open house. What that means is, you know, level 1 is I'm going to do an open house at my listing on Sunday. So I'll throw an open house sign in my trunk and I'll show up 10 minutes before the open and I'll stick a sign in the yard and I'll hope somebody comes by. That's level 1. You did an open house. How effective was it? Right? Level 7 is, you know, you've got news media out, you've got elephants parading down the street, leading, you know, right? It's that you have maximized the impact of that open house. So read the book. It will tell you how to do a 7th level open house, meaning you're maximizing your effort. And we suggest you don't do an open house unless you at least do 5 levels. Use video online. People don't like to tape themselves. People don't like to listen to themselves. And yet we know that video is very, very effective. It's more effective than any other type of communication through social media. And there's a lot of companies out there that can help you with that. So BombBomb is a great one for video messaging. Video message to buyers that are on the fence. I love to send buyers a video from a property, especially one that they've thought about making an offer in on, and say, hey, you know, what would be great is if you're standing in the yard and you show them 2 other couples going in, you know, and say, hey, I'm sitting out here in front of the house and I saw another agent bringing a buyer in. Do you think we might want to put an offer in, right, so it doesn't go to the wrong buyer? But video message to get them off the fence. Be kind to agents, right? So your job is to facilitate transactions, and a lot of realtors seem to think their job is to cause a problem, right? Because suddenly that makes them more valuable or the hero or something like that. So there are agents out there you'll deal with who are just nasty people. And then you'll deal with them all the time, right? And if you're going to deal with somebody all the time and you're nice to them, they will want to put offers in on your house. If it's between 2 homes, they'll go, you know, I know that agent. I've worked with them before. Let's go ahead and work with them because otherwise it'll be a problem, right? Same thing when you're a buyer and maybe you're bringing a buyer into a situation that has multiple offers. Maybe they'll be more likely to look at your offer versus someone else's. So just be kind. Doesn't cost you anything. Work out every day, so keep your physical health up. If you look in the One Thing book, you will see 7 circles. And we start with kind of in a clockwise fashion. The number one priority is your spiritual health. Number two priority is your physical health. We believe that we're spiritual beings having a physical experience. If that's true, your number one priority has to be your spirituality, your relationship with something greater than yourself. And if you don't have a body to carry you through that relationship, you don't have anything. If you've been in a situation where you've had a major health scare or someone you love has, you know that everything shuts down until that's corrected, right? So take care of your body, eat right, drink a gallon of water every day, and it will make a huge difference to you. Okay, so those are your 51 possibilities for increasing your CGI. You can download Cody Gibson's list at 51list.wordpress.com. And again, I want to give a shout out to Cody Gibson. He runs the United Home Group out of Portland. Cody will do, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of about 1,700 transactions across the country this year. So he knows quite a bit about selling real estate, and this is what he's developed in his career of what works for him. So questions, comments? I'm going to need a few ahas before we get out of here, but yes. My email, mcoffey, MCOFFEY @kw.com. Is that two questions or a stretch? There's a lot, yeah. And so let's put this in perspective. These are 51 things you could do, and there's no way on God's green earth that you're going to implement 51 new things, right? So we want to give you enough that you can go out and pick and choose what's going to work for you and implement that process or that system in your life. Maybe one day you'll get to all of them, but you don't need to get to all of them to make incremental progress. Remember that we're looking for progress, not perfection. Right? So it's what can I do today that will set me up for greater success tomorrow if I do that consistently. And I will tell you that I have downloaded this list and it sits above my phone at my desk, right? So it's just always there as a great reminder if I've got an extra minute to look and go, okay, you know, have I forgotten something? Oh yeah, I need to be doing that, right? Okay, so 3 ahas and then we'll wrap it up. What's an aha? Some people remember. Yes. Awesome. Orphan clients. Beautiful. Awesome. Thank you. 2 other people. One. Visit 3 houses every day. Yep. APIs instead of CMAs. Awesome. Here's what happens next. I love that one. Yep. Any others? Don't work weekends. I love at least one day a week. So when you set your schedule, right, when you plan out your year, plan off that time. And just say, I'm sorry, I'm not available. I'm sorry, I've got another appointment. How about if we do X, right? So it's just setting expectations. Thank you so much for your attention. Go out and live a great life.